Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the lives of the most influential people in human history. Today, we're diving into the extraordinary story of a woman who literally glowed in the dark from her scientific work, won not one, but two Nobel Prizes in different fields, and broke barriers that seemed impossible to break in her time. This is the story of Marie Curie, born Maria Sklodowska, a Polish woman who became one of the most celebrated scientists in history, discovered two new elements, pioneered the field of radioactivity, and saved countless lives during World War I with her mobile X-ray units. But her path to greatness was anything but easy. She faced poverty, discrimination, personal tragedy, and even life-threatening exposure to radiation. Yet through it all, she persevered with a determination that would reshape our understanding of physics and chemistry forever. So grab your lab coat, metaphorically speaking, as we uncover the fascinating life of Marie Curie. Our story begins on November 7, 1867, in Warsaw, Poland. But this wasn't the Poland we know today. At the time, Poland had been partitioned between Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and Warsaw was under Russian control. This political situation would shape Marie's early life in profound ways. Marie was born Maria Sklodowska, the youngest of 5 children to Władysław Sklodowski and Bronisława Boguska. Both parents were educators. Her father taught mathematics and physics, while her mother ran a prestigious boarding school for girls. The family was part of the Polish intelligentsia, but they had lost most of their wealth due to patriotic investments in Polish causes. Growing up under Russian occupation meant that Polish children were forbidden from learning their own history and culture in school. Russian was the mandatory language of instruction, and Polish literature, history, and even speaking Polish was discouraged or outright banned in educational settings. But the Sklodowski family was quietly rebellious. At home, they spoke Polish, taught their children Polish history, and instilled in them a deep love of learning and Polish patriotism. Marie's father would secretly conduct science experiments and share his love of mathematics and physics with his children. Tragedy struck early in Marie's life. When she was 8 years old, her eldest sister Zofia died of typhus. 2 years later, her mother Bronislawa died of tuberculosis. These losses devastated the family both emotionally and financially as they lost the income from the boarding school. Despite these hardships, Marie excelled academically. She graduated from gymnasium at age 15 with a gold medal. But here's where her gender became a barrier. As a woman, she couldn't attend the University of Warsaw. In fact, women were barred from higher education throughout the Russian Empire. But Marie and her sister Bronya had a plan. They made a pact. Bronya would go to Paris first to study medicine, while Marie worked as a governess to support her financially. Then, once Bronya became established, she would return the favor and support Marie's education. This arrangement, which they called Flying University, was actually part of a larger underground educational movement in Poland where scholars secretly taught courses that were banned by the Russian authorities. For 3 years, Marie worked as a governess for wealthy families, sending most of her earnings to support Bronya's medical studies in Paris. During this time, she also taught herself advanced mathematics and physics, preparing for her eventual escape to Paris. In 1891, at age 24, Marie finally made her way to Paris to study at the Sorbonne. She enrolled under the French version of her name, Marie, and dove headfirst into her studies in physics and mathematics. But life in Paris was far from easy. Marie lived in a 6th-floor garret in the Latin Quarter, so cold in winter that water would freeze in her wash basin. She survived on a diet of bread, butter, and tea, occasionally adding an egg or piece of chocolate when she could afford it. She was so malnourished that she once fainted during a lecture. Why did she endure such hardship? Because for the first time in her life, Marie had access to proper laboratories, advanced equipment, and professors who were world leaders in their fields. She was like a person dying of thirst who had finally found water. Marie threw herself into her studies with incredible intensity. She often studied until 2 or 3 in the morning, then woke up early to attend lectures. Her dedication paid off. She graduated first in her physics degree and second in her mathematics degree. But perhaps more importantly, it was during this time that she met Pierre Curie. Pierre was 8 years older than Marie, and already an established physicist, known for his work on crystallography and magnetism. He had invented sensitive scientific instruments and co-discovered piezoelectricity with his brother Jacques. When they met in 1894, Marie was looking for laboratory space for her research on the magnetic properties of steel, and Pierre had some available space. Their first meeting was professional, but they quickly discovered they shared not just a passion for science, but also similar values and outlook on life. Pierre was immediately impressed by Marie's intellect and dedication. In his first letter to her, he wrote about their shared dream of devoting their lives to scientific research. They married on July 26, 1895, in a simple ceremony. Marie wore a dark blue dress, practical enough that she could later use it as a laboratory outfit. For their honeymoon, they went on a bicycle tour through the French countryside, discussing science and their future research plans. This wasn't just a marriage. It was the beginning of one of the most productive scientific partnerships in history. The story of Marie Curie's greatest discoveries begins with a recent breakthrough by another scientist. In 1896, Henri Becquerel had discovered that uranium salts emitted mysterious rays that could pass through solid matter and expose photographic plates. This phenomenon was so new that it didn't even have a name yet. Marie decided to investigate these mysterious uranium rays for her doctoral thesis. Using an innovative instrument called an electrometer, invented by Pierre and his brother, she began measuring the electrical conductivity of air exposed to uranium compounds. But here's where Marie's methodical approach led to a crucial insight. While other scientists were focusing on uranium itself, Marie decided to test whether this ray emission was a property of uranium alone, or if other elements might behave similarly. She tested every element she could get her hands on. Most showed no unusual properties, but then she tested thorium, and found that it too emitted these mysterious rays. This was a groundbreaking discovery because it suggested that ray emission was not unique to uranium, but might be a fundamental property of certain atoms themselves. Marie coined the term radioactivity to describe this phenomenon, a word we still use today. But the most exciting discovery was yet to come. Marie tested various uranium ores and compounds, expecting that pure uranium would be the most radioactive. But she found something puzzling. Some uranium ores were far more radioactive than pure uranium itself. This could only mean one thing. These ores contained unknown elements that were even more radioactive than uranium. Marie convinced Pierre to abandon his own research and join her in what would become an epic quest to isolate these mysterious elements. Working in a converted shed that was freezing in winter and sweltering in summer, they began processing tons of pitchblende, a uranium ore, to extract tiny amounts of the unknown radioactive elements. The work was backbreaking. They would boil huge vats of pitchblende, stirring the mixture with iron rods almost as tall as themselves. Marie would process up to 20 kilograms of material at a time, grinding, dissolving, filtering, precipitating, crystallizing, and recrystallizing over and over again. After months of this work, they had isolated 1/10 of a gram of a new element, which they named polonium after Marie's beloved homeland of Poland. This was both a scientific achievement and a political statement, keeping the name of Poland alive during a time when it had been erased from the map. But they weren't done. Their measurements suggested there was yet another unknown element in the pitchblende. After processing literally tons of pitchblende residue, Marie estimated she processed over 8 tons total. They isolated another new element. They named it radium, from the Latin word for ray. And radium was so radioactive that it glowed in the dark with an eerie blue-green light. Marie would later write about how she and Pierre would visit their laboratory at night just to admire the beautiful glow of their radium samples. They had no idea that this ethereal beauty was slowly killing them through radiation exposure. The discovery of polonium and radium revolutionized science, But initially, the scientific community was skeptical. The amounts Marie and Pierre had isolated were so tiny that some scientists questioned whether these new elements actually existed. Marie knew she had to prove the existence of these elements beyond any doubt. So she embarked on an even more challenging task, determining the atomic weight of radium. This required isolating pure radium, not just radium compounds, and measuring its properties precisely. After 4 more years of exhausting work, Marie finally succeeded in isolating 1/10 of a gram of pure radium chloride and measuring its atomic weight as 226. This provided undeniable proof that radium was indeed a new element. The scientific world took notice. In 1903, Marie became the first woman to receive a Nobel Prize, sharing the Physics Prize with Pierre and Henri Becquerel for their work on radioactivity. But here's an interesting historical note. Marie was initially not going to be included in the nomination. It was only after Pierre insisted that Marie's contributions were essential that she was added to the nomination. The Nobel Prize brought international fame, but it also brought unwanted attention. Journalists invaded their privacy. Society ladies wanted to meet the famous scientists, and everyone wanted to see the glowing radium samples. Marie and Pierre, who preferred quiet laboratory work, found this attention overwhelming and often annoying. More importantly, they began to notice the harmful effects of radiation on their health. Both suffered from fatigue, aching hands, and other symptoms we now know were caused by radiation poisoning. Marie's hands became permanently scarred and painful from handling radioactive materials. But tragedy was about to strike the Curie family in the most unexpected way.
On April 19, 1906, Pierre Curie was crossing a busy street in Paris when he was struck and killed by a horse-drawn wagon. He was just 46 years old. Marie was devastated. She had lost not just her husband but her closest collaborator and intellectual partner. In her diary, which she began writing to Pierre after his death, Marie poured out her grief. She wrote about her loneliness, her struggle to continue their work, and her determination to honor his memory through science. The University of Paris offered Marie something unprecedented, Pierre's professorship. She became the first female professor in the university's 650-year history. Her first lecture, given to a packed auditorium, began exactly where Pierre's last lecture had ended, a poignant tribute that brought many in the audience to tears. But Marie's challenges were far from over. As a woman in science, she faced constant discrimination and criticism. When she was nominated for the French Academy of Sciences in 1911, she was rejected by a single vote, and the newspapers were filled with sexist commentary about her candidacy. That same year brought both triumph and scandal. Marie won her second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for the discovery of radium and polonium. This made her the first person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences, a record that still stands today with only one other person, Linus Pauling, achieving this feat. But the celebration was overshadowed by a personal scandal. Marie had begun a relationship with physicist Paul Langevin, who was married but separated from his wife. When their affair became public, the French press attacked Marie viciously, calling her a foreign homewrecker and worse. The scandal became so intense that she was advised not to attend the Nobel Prize ceremony in Stockholm. Marie's response was characteristically direct. She went to Stockholm anyway and accepted her prize, stating that she believed there was no connection between her scientific work and her private life. Through all of this personal turmoil, Marie continued her research, raised her 2 daughters as a single mother, and began to expand her scientific work in new directions. When World War I broke out in 1914, Marie saw an opportunity to use her scientific knowledge to save lives. She realized that X-ray equipment could help battlefield surgeons locate bullets and shrapnel in wounded soldiers, but most hospitals near the front lines lacked X-ray machines. Marie's solution was revolutionary for its time: mobile X-ray units. She developed vehicles equipped with X-ray equipment, electrical generators, and photographic darkrooms. These became known as Petite Curies, Little Curies. Marie personally drove to the front lines, often under dangerous conditions, to set up X-ray equipment in field hospitals. She trained doctors and nurses to operate the equipment and even learned to drive and repair the vehicles herself. But Marie didn't stop there. She also established France's first military radiology school, training women to operate X-ray equipment. By the end of the war, her mobile units and fixed installations had provided X-ray services to over 1 million wounded soldiers. This work was physically demanding and dangerous. Marie was exposed to even more radiation, and she often worked in primitive conditions, close to active battlefields. But she saw it as her patriotic duty, both to France, which had given her scientific opportunities, and to humanity. Her war work demonstrated something crucial about Marie's character. She wasn't just a brilliant scientist working in isolation, but someone who believed science should serve society and help alleviate human suffering. After the war, Marie became an international celebrity and used her fame to advance science and education. She embarked on fundraising trips, most notably to the United States in 1921, where American women had raised money to buy her a gram of radium for her research. The trip to America was a triumph. Marie was celebrated everywhere she went, received honorary degrees from universities, and inspired countless young women to pursue science. But she was also somewhat uncomfortable with the celebrity treatment, preferring to focus on the scientific and educational aspects of her visits. Marie established the Radium Institute, now the Curie Institute, in Paris, which became a leading center for nuclear physics and chemistry research. She also helped establish a similar institute in Warsaw, fulfilling her dream of contributing to science in her homeland. Throughout the 1920s, Marie continued her research while also serving on the League of Nations International Committee on Intellectual Cooperation, alongside Albert Einstein. She became an advocate for international scientific cooperation and the peaceful uses of atomic energy. But the radiation exposure from decades of handling radioactive materials was taking its toll. Marie suffered from cataracts, kidney problems, and severe anemia. Her fingertips were cracked and scarred, and she often felt tired and weak. Despite her declining health, Marie continued working almost until the end of her life. She was still going to her laboratory and supervising research when she became seriously ill in early 1934. Marie Curie died on July 4, 1934, at age 66, from aplastic anemia caused by radiation exposure. Even in death, she made history. She was the first woman to be honored with interment in the Pantheon in Paris based on her own achievements. Marie Curie's scientific contributions extend far beyond the discovery of two elements. Her work laid the foundation for our modern understanding of atomic structure and radioactivity, leading directly to developments in nuclear physics, nuclear medicine, and nuclear energy. The techniques she developed for isolating radioactive elements were crucial for later scientists who discovered additional radioactive elements. Her meticulous measurement of atomic weights helped establish the periodic table as we know it today. In medicine, her discoveries led to the development of radiation therapy for cancer treatment. The Curie Institute, which she founded, remains one of the world's leading cancer research centers. Radioactive isotopes discovered through her work are now used in medical imaging, cancer treatment, and countless other applications. The unit of radioactivity, the Curie, is named in her honor, as is the element curium. Her laboratory notebooks, more than a century old, are still radioactive and will remain so for another 1,500 years, a lasting testament to her groundbreaking work. But perhaps Marie's most important legacy isn't scientific, it's inspirational. She proved that barriers could be broken, that women could excel in science at the highest levels, and that dedication and perseverance could overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. Marie Curie's story is ultimately one of human determination triumphing over adversity. She faced poverty, discrimination, personal tragedy, and literal life-threatening work conditions, yet she never gave up on her pursuit of knowledge. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the first person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences, the first female professor at the Sorbonne, and the first woman to be honored in the Pantheon based on her own achievements. But more than these firsts, Marie Curie showed the world what was possible when brilliance, determination, and passion combine. Her famous quote captures her philosophy perfectly. "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more, so that we may fear less." Today, as we continue to push the boundaries of science and face new global challenges, Marie Curie's example reminds us that breakthrough discoveries often require not just brilliance, but also patience, persistence, and the courage to venture into the unknown. From a young girl forbidden to attend university in occupied Poland to one of the most celebrated scientists in history, Marie Curie's journey proves that with dedication and perseverance, one person really can change the world. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the remarkable life of Marie Curie. If this story inspired you, please like this video and subscribe for more profiles of the people who shaped our world. And remember, as Marie Curie showed us, the only limits to what we can achieve are the ones we accept. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.